Hi, welcome back. I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite topics today, which is the psychology behind creating good habits that stick. So today I'm sharing 9 of my favorite strategies to help you form lasting habits. My name is Katie. I'm a behavioral food therapist with a private practice in San Francisco. Welcome to Nourishment, where I talk about commonly addressed topics in client sessions around our relationship to food, emotional resilience, and whole food nutrition. To give you an overview before we dive into the strategies, remember, just like there's no one right way to eat for everyone, there's no one right way to go about forming habits. We all have different temperaments, routines, styles of working. The important thing is to know yourself, know what comes easily, what's more challenging, and craft an environment that better supports those challenging areas. Think of the strategies I'm sharing today as reinforcing a foundation for good practices. So some of the strategies will be the right material for your foundation, others won't. But be sure to stick around until the end because I'm sharing a really important bonus tip to help you put the strategies you do want to use into practice. In combing through the strategies that I've researched over the years and found to be helpful for myself and my clients, I'm currently finding that they fit into 3 buckets, 3 main categories. The first category is self-insight, gaining self-knowledge. The second is organization of time and process. And the third is mindset and beliefs. So let's dive into the 9 strategies. So the first 2 strategies have to do with the bucket of self-knowledge, self-insight. And the first strategy is to remember your R's. And this has to do with 2 questions you want to ask yourself. Am I ready to take action? And is what I want to do realistic? So this comes from a behavior change model that I've been studying for more than a decade, starting back in grad school. It's called the stages of change. And it shows that to form habits, we go through this process of pre-contemplation, where we're not aware of needing to make a change, to contemplation, where we're aware and we're assessing whether it's worth it and what it entails, to determination, where we're determined and willing to make the change, and then we're ready to take action. One of the important things to recognize here is that determination is not the same as taking action, and that's okay. We cannot jump to taking action immediately. We have to be patient and allow ourselves to sit in this determination phase until we're ready to move forward and take action. If you are ready to take action, then you can move to the next question, which is what I'm trying to do realistic? A 6 a.m. workout might not be realistic if we are consistently going to bed after midnight. So it helps us look at, do I want to shift my workout time or do I want to try moving up my bedtime? But the point of this strategy is that we have to take steps that we're ready for and that suit our lifestyle. The second strategy is to investigate your personal tendencies. So there's this personality framework called the 4 tendencies that I love. It was developed by Gretchen Rubin to help us learn how we respond to internal and external expectations. So Gretchen is the author of several books. She has a podcast called Happier, and she researches happiness, habits, and human nature. The categories for the 4 tendencies are upholder, obliger, questioner, and rebel. And the obliger and questioner categories are the largest. So they're the 2 categories that most people fall underneath. So the obliger is somebody who readily meets external expectations like a work deadline or meeting a friend to walk at the park, but has a challenging time meeting internal expectations like vowing to drink less alcohol or eat more greens. An obliger, on the other hand, wants to know the data. They want to do all the research before making a choice, and they want to know their why, whether it's an internal or external expectation. They need to know why it's important before they can commit. Many of my clients have had an aha moment when they've developed this self-insight of their tendency in the context of this personality framework. And when we understand how we operate, 2 things happen. One, we don't feel deficient because we realize that everyone operates differently and there's not one right way to operate. And 2, we can better set up an environment that supports our habits. So I suggest you go to the website, I'll link below, to take the quiz and learn what your own tendency is, and then check out the book from the library or buy it to dive into the 4 tendencies to understand your own in the context of others. The next set of strategies have to do with organization of our time. So strategy number 3 is to create clarity about when and how you're going to do something. A lot of times my clients will say, well, I know what to do, I just don't know why I can't do it. And the issue is often not discipline or willpower, but rather a lack of clarity. There's ambiguity, and if we don't take time to identify the baby steps and make time for those steps to happen, then we'll be fuzzy about what it takes to form a habit, and we'll fall back into our old ways. Many of my clients want to cook more at home, but they don't know why it's not happening. So we back up and look at all of the details that are involved in cooking, like making sure that cooking's aligned with one of their health values, researching recipes, finding go-to sources for recipe inspiration, making a grocery list, planning time to shop, planning time to cook. Making this list and creating time in the calendar gives us clarity for how and when we'll do something, and we benefit from being mentally and logistically prepared. I love the saying that what we can do at any time is often done at no time. So it's to our benefit that we book ourselves into the calendar. The fourth strategy is one of my favorites, and it's allow time to start. So starting anything is messy. This is a universal truth. So whether it's starting a new writing project or a new form of exercise or mindful eating, we often feel worse and uncomfortable before we feel better. And starting leads to this sense of feeling out of place, like we're doing something wrong, we're taking steps backwards before we start to feel like we're gaining momentum and clarity. A personal example for me is that I write a lot. I write scripts for these videos, outlines for talks and workshops. I write blog posts and articles and newsletters. So when I sit down to start a new writing project, I used to expect that I would write a rough draft in one go. But this wasn't realistic. When I began to devote time to just starting, it was like an emotional weight was lifted. I began to see starting as an essential step to a rough draft. I allowed it to be messy, to just get my thoughts out on paper without any expectation. And checking this off the list felt like a huge win to me because I had started, I got my foot in the door, and I knew I wouldn't be coming back to a blank page. Let's take another example. Say you're trying to cut down on alcohol or coffee. Give yourself a full month to just start without expecting that you do it right or it goes really well. And set expectations that, yeah, you're going to feel terrible, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the process. A lot of people quit because they feel like they're doing something wrong or they think that it should be easier. But if we can stick with it and move through this process of starting, then things will get better over time. Strategy number 5 is to celebrate iterations. So we know to form lasting habits, it doesn't happen overnight, but we often dabble in it, trying things once or twice and then giving up, saying it doesn't work. But this is like sticking our toes in the water when we intend to go for a swim. We can't feel the benefit from a swim until we fully immerse our body in the water and commit to swimming. In forming new habits, we have to immerse ourselves in the process of experimenting, stepping back, reflecting, observing, tweaking, and trying again, and repeating this process over and over until it begins to feel more familiar and comfortable. In celebrating iterations, we want to practice consistency because it's easier to establish a routine and maintain that than to start and stop. So we want to create a process that's as frictionless and automatic as possible so that we can reduce decision fatigue and cognitive load. One example is a lot of us want to be more mindful and intentional about our food choices each day. And in order to do that, we need to break the autopilot mode that we're running on. And so one suggestion is to set your alarm to go off at various times in the day to remind you to pause, to step back, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and check in. And setting the alarm is helpful because it's automatic, it's consistent, and there's no decisions involved other than the one to set it up. Strategy number 6 is to stack your habits. When you're wanting to do something new, look to an old or familiar habit or routine to pair that new habit with. So one example, I know people don't watch their favorite TV show or series unless they're walking on the treadmill. That's pairing two activities. Say you want to read more. See if there's already a structured time you've carved out in your day for me time. So if you spend 20 minutes in the morning to meditate and journal, try adding reading into this time that's already carved out for yourself. A personal example for me is that I tore my Achilles tendon almost a year and a half ago playing tennis. So I fell out of the habit of doing yoga and stretching. So once I recovered, I was looking for a natural way to stack the habit with something I was already doing, preferably when I was already in my workout clothes and in the mindset of being out and active. So I began to pair the habit of yoga with walking my dog Layla, because that happens every day no matter what. The final 3 strategies have to do with mindset. And strategy number 7 is to ask yourself, who do I want to be when forming a new habit? So this has to do with identity and aligning our actions with our health values. Going back to my habit I fell out of yoga and stretching, I began to realize I felt out of balance, and I was thinking, this isn't like me to ignore my body. I don't want to be somebody who neglects her needs and isn't moving in a way that feels good. And this mindset shift helped me realize the misalignment between what I was doing and who I was, but that wasn't coming out through the habit or lack thereof. Strategy number 8 is to be wary of the finish line. So this might resonate with those of you who have a strong all or nothing tendency or a history of going all in with something or not in at all. The 21-day resets or no sugar challenge or the 30-day yoga challenge might be difficult for those of us with this mentality because it's setting a finish line and a mental stop date instead of encouraging ongoing behavior. And it's much harder to start, stop, then start again than it is to maintain. The 9th and final strategy is to build in time to reflect. So our habits and rituals are only helpful to the extent that we are tuned into our changing needs and can adapt. And we can only tune in and adapt if we have a process of reflecting and reviewing so that we can see what's working and not working. We need a structure that helps us pause and review our health values and goals and carve out white space to reflect. And side note, if you don't know what I'm talking about with white space, I mentioned it in step 4 in last week's video, and I'll link it up here if you want to go back and watch. But having a therapist or coach like me helps to ensure that you have built-in reflection time. But I also recommend scheduling in time in your calendar and a reminder to check in every quarter. And if you can create this space to go out in nature and take a few hours, go for a hike or to the beach or to a park, that helps to quiet the noise of everyday life and reflect on what's going well, what's not, and what you want to tweak. So these are my 9 strategies. I hope they're helpful for you. As is usually the case, these are simple concepts, but it doesn't mean they're easy to put into practice. So I suggest that you find one strategy that piqued your interest and apply what is called the confidence and competence model. The bonus tip I promise to help you put a new habit into practice is this competence-confidence model. So applying this model to your habit will help you identify which strategy to start with by asking, what is preventing me from starting this habit? Is it that I'm lacking confidence or competence? In other words, is it a mindset issue? You know what to do, but you don't feel confident in your ability. In this case, perhaps strategies number 1 or 9 will help you decide if you're ready to take action, or strategies number 3 and 5 will encourage you to take baby steps to celebrate the small wins and feel the momentum. Or on the flip side, is it a skill issue? You're not familiar with what this habit will entail. You need to gain more insight. So perhaps strategies number 2 and 4 will help you gain self-knowledge and allow you time to start doing research. Now I'm really curious to know which one of these strategies resonated most for you. Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.